Greetings and welcome to the latest edition of the Entheogenic Evolution podcast. As always, I'm your host Martin, and I'm happy to have you with me today. For this week's episode, I welcome back onto the Entheogenic Evolution podcast Mario Garnier, who has been on the podcast before, and it's been a number of years, and I just felt like reaching out to him and bringing him back on and talking about his latest offering and project, which is Bufo Camp, which is a men's retreat that he is hosting in Mexico, working with small groups of men, introducing them to the secretions of the toad, formerly known as Bufo alvarius, but currently known as Encilius alvarius. We had a great talk, just kind of catching up and learning about what he's doing. And also, just so you know, he recently did an AI experiment where he fed some materials into an AI program and it generated a whole conversation about Bufo alvarius and 5-MeO-DMT. And Mario has shared the link with me, and the link for that will be available in the podcast notes if you want to check it out. And there will also be a link to Bufo Camp in Mexico with Mario. Well, before we get into that conversation, just a couple announcements. Not too much to announce this week. Do want to thank Brooke, who has made her monthly contribution via PayPal in support of the podcast, as she has been doing every month for, a lot of years now. Thank you, Brooke. You're pretty much the only one who's making PayPal donations these days, and you have been for a long time. Really appreciate that. For those of you out there listening who might be interested, thinking to yourself, how could I support the Entheogenic Evolution podcast? Well, it's quite easy. You can stop by my Patreon page at patreon.com/MartinWBall, and you can sign up at the level that's comfortable for you. There's everything from $1 a month up to $100 a month. And as you go up those tiers, you get increasing access, benefits, gifts, and at the top tiers, you can get either a 30 or 1 hour video call check-in with me once a month. That's generally for people who want kind of ongoing integration support. Also, I do work with facilitators and also integration coaches. It's a great way to get some feedback on perhaps difficult cases or situations that you're dealing with. I've had a number of people come in for a time period to get that ongoing feedback and via those consultations, and I'm always happy to accommodate you. And of course, I'm also always available for 30, 60, or 90-minute integration calls with you, talking about your experience, providing feedback and reflection from a non-dual and energetic perspective. While I do specialize in 5-MeO-DMT and Bufo, I am not by any means limited to those psychedelic medicines, and I'm happy to talk to you about any experience that you might be grappling with and looking for some feedback and insights on. You can stop by at www.nondualentheogenicintegration.com if you would like more info about that. You can shoot me an email at martinwball@gmail.com or just stop by my main webpage, martinball.net, and that's got links to pretty much everything else available out there. Speaking of integration, I just want to give another shout out to my current 5-MeO-DMT integration specialist training course that I am doing through Mindscape Institute. We are now just over halfway through our 9-week program. It's really been going amazingly well. I'm really enjoying all of the interactions and input from the students and all of the sharings. It's just, I'm absolutely looking forward to it every Wednesday to get to teach this class. It's just awesome. Also, we have our new 5-MeO-DMT facilitator training course is starting at the end of April with Mindscape. That one is already now all booked up, but we are starting to take new students for the next round of class that will be offered in October. So if this is a program that you want to get in on, stop by Mindscape Institute to get more information and get your name in. I will be offering the 5-MeO-DMT integration specialist training course sometime later this year. I haven't decided when I'm going to do that, but I am looking to do that again. So lots of educational opportunities for you out there if you want to get in on these. And also, I am busy working on editing Stephen Kirby's book about trauma-informed 5-MeO-DMT facilitation. That's going to be available soon. I, of course, will let you know here on the podcast when it is ready. This is a text that Kirby developed for the curriculum for the facilitator training course. And I've made a number of edits and contributions to the book myself, but I'm formally now the editor. And also I've written a foreword for the book and still polishing that thing up, but it's going to be available soon and out there for anyone who's curious. And so you can see exactly what kind of materials we cover at Mindscape Institute in the facilitation training course. And of course, if you want to know what we're covering in the integration class, it's easy. Just go out and pick up my book, 5-MeO-DMT Integration, Embodying Non-Duality is Not What You Think, Education and Empowerment for Working with the God Molecule. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into this conversation with Mario, welcoming him back to the Entheogenic Evolution podcast after a many years hiatus. Here's my conversation with Mario we had the other month. Hope you enjoy. All right. Well, I am welcoming back onto the podcast today Mario Garnier, and it's been a number of years since Mario's been on the podcast, so we're going to start by doing a little review. Usually when I have a guest rejoin, we just jump in with whatever topic we're going to talk about, but since it's been a number of years and audience members come and go, and who knows how many people who are listening today are people who were listening the however many years ago it was that I had Mario on. So let's just start with welcoming Mario. And Mario, I just want to invite you to introduce yourself, and then we'll be getting into all different kinds of topics.
Hi, Martin. Thank you for having me again. I would say that I will introduce myself as an enthusiast of 5-MeO-DMT and Bufo various, and also, I guess, a very active participant of the Bufo Alvarius community in the past maybe 12 or 11 years. I met Martin for the first time for the WBAC, which was the World Bufo Alvarius Congress that we started in 2018. And I guess I have been around working with the molecule, exploring myself, trying to be a better human being, and trying to share information with people about this powerful tool that I consider is one of the most precious substances for human beings on Earth. So I have been dedicating my time on this.
Yeah. Well, great, Mario. Thanks for that short introduction. So let's go ahead and back up even further. And I'm sure we talked about this before, but honestly, it's been so many years since I've had you on the podcast. I don't remember the answer to the questions that I want to ask you now. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask you again.
Yes.
Okay. But so we're established that you're down in Mexico, primarily working with Bufo. But how did you first get introduced to Bufo? How did you enter into this world of 5-MeO-DMT, specifically through the secretions of the Sonoran Desert toad? What's your story there?
Well, basically, my brother told me that there was an opportunity using these substances for helping people who was struggling with mental health diseases. So somebody that I loved so much was going through some crisis, and I was looking for options. So basically, I jumped in a crazy apartment in Mexico City around, I would say, I guess I am the class of the 2011. I mean, yeah, it was around 2011, and it was destiny, I guess, because I wasn't really looking for this. I wasn't really into psychedelics. I was more working in production, media. That's kind of what I was doing. But then the encounter broke my mind, brought my attention. I think it happens to a lot of us. Once you have the encounter, you can never go back to normal. So it happened in an apartment in Mexico City, with, I guess, was this man who was on his way to Chile. And I guess it was his first or second ceremony. And he was educated in the Native American tribes churches. He was from Arizona, and he was Mexican, but he was from Arizona. And well, it was in a ceremonial stage, but then he just left, and there was no more information around. So I started my quest, and there was really nobody to ask. Well, it was you. It was you. I remember you.
Yeah.
And I remember James O'Rourke. I remember, well, the pioneers, Octavio. You know, I remember all that first wave, and I would say it just dragged me in a way that took me in a ride that lasted, I don't know how many years. I think I'm still on the ride.
Yeah. Still working on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It unfolded a process that it's that continues until this day. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So with that first introduction, something that's come up on the podcast a lot is people come on and they say, yeah, well, after my first experience, I decided like, I want to know everything about 5-MeO DMT. I want to know everything about Bufo. I want to make this my life. I want to serve it to other people. I want to share it. What was your experience in those aspects?
Oh, my brother. You're touching some good stuff. Well, I call it the pathologies after the encounter. I went into a manic state that led me to even. You remember how I was committed enough to organize the World Bufo Alvarius Congress, and yeah, I went through all those stages. I I thought that I was going to be the one that it was going to save the world using this technology. And oh my God, I have to accept it and I have to be honest about it. And yeah, and I think there's a few possible pathologies that presents after the encounter with the medicine. And one of those is that manic state, seeing that everything in the world is just wrong and must be changed. And since you saw the light, since I have seen the light with this molecule, I was going to be, able to change everything. But, time was, teaching me and showing me the path, the usage of the tool. That's the way I call it, not medicine. Was teaching me how to, I had to look inside. And when I started looking inside and I started fixing myself inside, all the troubles that I was seeing outside in the world started to vanish. So all that I was seeing outside was just projection of my inner worlds. So once the molecule took me to it, but it took me a couple of years to figure this out. I went into this manic state. So once I started changing myself, my inner worlds, my necessity of changing the world just stopped. And now I am becoming more and more quiet about this. I am just doing a lot of work on myself, working with small groups in the desert, no big deal. And I mean, I did the podcast, I did the documentary, I started the World Bufo Alvarius Congress. We started with the Guild of Practitioners, the Union of Collectors. I took a trip to Europe and I started connecting peoples from the Mexican desert with families in Norway, in Spain, in France, trying to make this medicine bridge. But at some point, I realized that I was working outside and I was putting all my efforts to outside to not observe myself. But once I started observing myself, all that all that necessity just vanished. So I went through that manic state that I call the Messiah complex. I think everybody calls it that way. And and now I don't blame the people because also good things came from that manic state in my life. I was doing some service with the community. I was putting all my money, all my service. I had a production company which I sold, and I put all my money into I was traveling in Europe, South America, being very financially irresponsible because now my ego was diminished and I didn't need money. But then reality hits, and then you and then you have to, go back to, well, I would say not normal, but in order to do not become so unstable, I guess, it eventually, I started, going back to, to to the real world. I don't know. Well, if I could call it the real world or the material world, I don't know how to say it, right? So it took me in a ride, and I went through these manic states. Actually, I did the book Meet Mr. Alvarius, and that's when I am. There is where I am trying to explain this. Also, I had this thing that it's the emergence of the dark side. In the beginning, I wasn't understanding why. A lot of the people that were taking the medicine at some point, they become like all the defects of character, including myself, started to come out. So I turned myself into what could be. I mean, I know you educate us a lot about the non-dual stuff, and I really know that. But what I would consider like the darkness or the bad, or what could be considered as like a bad person, right? And I went through that state when all my darkness came out. It was a process that the encounter with the medicine brought me into, and I wasn't really understanding, but it started first. I started observing that first in the others. I wasn't able yet to observe myself, but I've started seeing people. Remember, those stories about people abusing people in the medicine, or people being greedy and enslaving other people with financially and all that stuff. And I've started seeing it. I have started seeing that in the people who was taking also the medicine or the substance or the tool, and I didn't understood what was going on. And at some point, I understood that also unfolds and also unfolded in me too. But I was blind to see myself. But at some point, I turned my eyes to myself, and I realized that I was being super prideful, trying to think that I was better than everyone, trying to change the world, trying to. Some people have some capacities, Martin, and I had the capacity to control some stuff. I was working really hard in knowing who was serving the medicine. That's why we made the Congress, and that's when we were. So we were, checking where the medicine was being trafficked, between the Sonoran Desert and the communities in Europe, and I was very into that. And at some point, that was the darkness of myself just flooding out, but I wasn't able to see it. But you know how this thing works? At some point, you just realize, and once you know, you cannot keep doing it again. It's just but if you don't know, you don't know. So I went to this stage of the emergence of the dark side. That was part also of my ride, and to me was pride. I think I have all the defects, of course, but like the main thing that brought me, or the darkness that emerged in me, was the pride, and was hidden into thinking that I was doing the good for humanity, that I was needed. But Martin, those crazy years, there was people killing themselves in the Mexican desert for the turf wars in the medicine, and I was in the middle of that. I wasn't really trafficking or making money for selling that. No, no, no. I was just doing the connections and all that stuff, and it became something really dark. because the people from the tribes in the desert, they started having access to money that they in the past they didn't have access to. So that changes people too.
Yeah.
So it became like in those years, I'm talking about 2016, 2017. It was, no, even 2018, I guess. I don't remember. I'm not good with numbers, but in those times, I saw the darkness, emerging from the community. And I went through that too. And people, I mean, when you cannot see, you can tell yourself lies to yourself of what's really going on. But once the time goes by, I realized that I was going through that emergence of darkness, and it's part of the process in order to recognize myself as a human being that has light and darkness. So I went through that state, and that was also part of my ride with the 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 substance, the medicine. Then I fall also in the pitfall of spiritual gluttony. I call it the pitfall of spiritual gluttony. I went to the jungle. I was looking for, they told me that there was a tree that is called the Virola tree that were only in some places in the Amazon. So I went there and I was looking for it, and I was really obsessed with finding more molecules and more substances. And I had well, these substances or the universe, the creator, whatever we want to call it, it will also always gives you the lessons you need. I was in the jungle. We were looking for that tree, and at some point, I started. I think we were in we were in a ayahuasca ceremony, and they put it. I remember they were putting toy on the vine, on the tea, and I had a vision of my daughter. I remember that I was in this manic state, trying to find a way how were we gonna be able to get the people from South Africa to get access to the medicine. And I was in that ceremony. I was listening voice of a young girl who, at some point, I realized that it was my daughter just asking me for a towel, and that made me understand that I wanted to save the world, and I was abandoned my daughter, and she just wanted me to. So I that kind of so I took a flight. I was in Mexico. Was the Father's Day. I took a flight. It took me 3 flights to get there. I remember, and I started to came back to my family because I abandoned them, because I went into this manic state of saying, okay, this is not important. The most important part is to save the world, save the Pachamama, change, and all that thing happens. And that came in my stage of the pitfall of spiritual gluttony. And I think at some point I went to the what I call the Gollum state also, and the pitfall of greed, because I wasn't really greedy about money, or I was more greedy about the power that comes with carrying these substances. And I was telling lies to myself. In those times, I was working with the president of the Congress of Mexico City, and we created a group of people that we were making these circles, and I realized that that was giving me access to people, of really powerful people that in the past I wasn't really able to reach out, and they were seeing me like important, and they were asking for my opinion. And then at some point I found myself trying to pass a law and the Mexican Congress, and it was like, oh my God. And at some point I realized that wasn't really good. That was manipulation, people. And I am trying to be so honest with this because I want the people to be able to observe themselves, because I thought that I was doing great things, right? And at some point, everything comes back to you. And once you know, you cannot, I mean, you cannot do it again, because the consciousness increases, right? So I started to become more and more quiet these days because of that. Because also, Martin, every week or every month, I think that what I was thinking the last month is wrong, because I'm evolving. So that's why I'm in podcasts and stuff, because and now that I have this podcast that it's called the Bufo Talks, that is kind of the biggest podcast in Spanish about the Bufo, and it's kind of big. And sometimes I listen myself in those what I said in those days, and I see all these defects of characters of this Mario that does not exist anymore, who was thinking that what he was saying was absolutely the truth, right? And that's why I don't record podcasts anymore. I came to this podcast because I really, really appreciate you, and I know I really respect your work. But I'm not into podcasts anymore, to be honest. And yeah, because I'm still in the process, right? Also, I went into the state in what I called the pitfall of sloth, because I was a hard worker and a good worker. I mean, and at some point, I had some money. I had a company, kind of a big production company, and at some point, this stage of ego death brought me to think that I didn't need that much money. So it was just easier to roam around and to kind of take this hippie way of living, which I think it's fine for some people, but in the end, we need to find balance. And I found that the defect of character that I was facing, or what I was going through, is the sloth. A lot of sloth is attached to that decision to abandon the world, and I guess some years I went through that. And yeah, that homeless way, right? That escapism to avoid the personal work, that idea of escaping from my family, or my closest friends, or saying that they are not good enough for me, because now I was somebody who was enlightened or whatever. And it's just another stage that I went through. And in the end, I was looking. I was no at the beginning. I was looking for shamans or medicine people that were gonna, give me the lessons of my life. But with time, I understood that the real shamans, or the real medicine people, is my daughter, my son, my ex-wife, my partner. Is the people that is really have the medicine that I need. Is the people that it's close to, that is really close to me, who has really the lessons that my soul needs. And I was looking for people with dreadlocks, or the most exotic, shamans or whatever. Yeah. And at some point, I understood that, well, that's good for the pamphlet or whatever, right? It's some paraphernalia is good for some people, but at the end, the medicine people is the medicine is who has the medicine is the people that surrounds you, the people that opens your wounds, right? And so I went through that state in my journey. And well, I guess I could speak hours about this, but I think I took too much of your time. I just wanted to share kind of you what you were asking me.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that, Mario, and appreciate your openness and your self-reflection on it. So there's just a few things I want to highlight from what you shared with us here. So first, it's what you're describing as this manic phase or this messianic phase, which, those of us who work in the 5-MeO DMT world know that this is a common after effect of having a 5-MeO DMT experience, because it's this interesting paradox of feeling very, very empowered by the experience, very inspired by the experience. And then sometimes people take that too far, that energy that gets built up from that, leads them down into what could be, some kind of messianic overindulgence of the self. And it can
Oh,
also,
yeah.
yeah, it could, like you were mentioning, I don't need money anymore, and not really living in the real world in that sense that we all live in a monetary economy. We need money. We need money to eat and survive, and that sometimes the mission becomes so important that you might neglect your family, like you were saying with your daughter, or you might neglect your loved ones because you're on a mission. You've got to change the world, and so finding that balance between the inspiration and then a more integrated personal existence, that can be very challenging for people. So I appreciate that you shared that. And another thing I wanted to highlight is that you mentioned about how, for people there's a lot of people who are new to the 5-MeO DMT world these days. A lot of people who are new to the Bufo world. They don't really know what the history was. But you and I were kind of both there at the beginnings of the modern history of Bufo and 5-MeO DMT. And we know that Bufo was introduced to the indigenous tribes in Mexico. It was not something that they ever did before, and it was introduced to them. And as you mentioned, then suddenly people are having way more money than they ever had before because people are coming and seeking this experience. And it's reached the point now where a lot of people, they romanticize going to Mexico and taking Bufo with one of the indigenous cultures. And, they think of it as this indigenous medicine. But historically, that's just not true, that this is something that was developed within the past couple decades. And then the spread of Bufo around the world, obviously you were someone who had a hand in that. Personally, it sounds like you're kind of backing off that to some degree now, but it's common. It's a common reaction that people experience this, and there's like, oh my God, everybody needs to know about this. Everybody needs to be able to experience this. So it's understandable, but then it can become reckless. And I think you kind of touched on a little bit how you were served by someone who then, I think you said he was on his way to Peru. And this has been a big element of Bufo serving in Mexico in particular, where people get served and then the shaman or whoever served them goes on somewhere else. And then people are kind of left high and dry with navigating these sometimes very challenging experiences that arise afterwards. And so that was a big concern around sort of the Mexico scene, was that people weren't getting what at the time was called aftercare. Now we call it integration, right? We've given it a label, but it was called aftercare at the time, and that people weren't receiving that, and that sometimes people were left broken or disoriented, or maybe going through a manic stage and there wasn't anybody there to guide them. So this has all been part of the modern history of Bufo and 5-MeO. Now, I'd like to return just a little bit to talking about the World Bufo Various Congress, because this is another thing where, again, there's so many people who are really only being introduced to 5-MeO DMT and Bufo within the past couple of years. It's just kind of exploded. And so when we mention, for those of us from the old school, you and I'd put us both in there. We're old school at this point. We all know what the World Bufo Various Congress was and what it meant at the time, but it's not currently happening. But I just want to say that for me, that very first one in 2018 was phenomenal in the sense that for the first time ever was able to actually meet in person, face to face, with people who were working with 5-MeO-DMT around the world. And prior to that, I only knew a couple of people who were facilitating. I'd only met a couple of other people in person, had met a few people online by having these kinds of conversations or inviting people onto my podcast. But it was like a family reunion that had never been united before at that very first one. And it was really special. So, yeah, I just want to invite you, if you want to share anything more about the World Bufo of Various Congress and what the germination for that was and the inspiration. And it kind of sounds like maybe you're identifying that a little bit with your manic period.
Yeah.
I'm open to whatever your critiques of yourself or the Congress were. And then I'd also just like to ask, like, do you think you'd ever do it again? So let's talk a little bit about the WBAC. We back.
The way back. Well, yeah, I mean, it brings, I know this is audio, but it brings a big smile every time we talk about that. Well, the WEVAC, the World Bufo Various Congress, was planned as a ceremony. It was a reunion it was called a reunion of the tribes. The idea was to gather, there was people from Australia, from the United States, from Mexico. It was a really small group of people, and the idea was to gather. The seed came. I was Ragrazam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of those times, there was Rag, and the gang of the Australians. So we said together, let's try to make this ceremony of connection. And to me, you may remember that when we started that Congress, when we was the very beginning. I remember that we treated it always as a ceremony, and it was a ceremony of word. It was a ceremony of connection and I think that was an event that, in a way, changed the course of humanity in a way, because a lot of the people that was putting all the heart, all the efforts, we discovered that there were more of us. Connections were made, brotherhoods, fights, everything happened there, right? It was like, in every family reunion, there's always, the aunt fighting and all that stuff. Everything happened, right? It was, stories but yeah, it was the seed was the idea of creating this union to empower the community, because I have always understood that creating community makes us stronger. And I was seeing that those days, that also something that what happens when you take the I'm going to call it the medicine this time.
Sure.
When you take the medicine, one of the things that happened that you just said is your ego is empowered. And now you think that you are the one, and the people that lives in front of your street, they are not doing the right thing. And at some point, the community was kind of in that state. There was the people who was accusing other people of doing it wrong and right, and then fighting for the clients or for the distribution of the substance. And at some point, my idea was to gather us all, see the faces. I am somebody that I want to fix the stuff. I'm old school. I'm a Gen X. I used to fix my stuff with my fists, So I like I like to get the things clear. So gathering us to see and find out, because it remembers, like, when there's some kid in the school that you don't like him so much, you want to fight with him, but at some point you realize that you are very equal, very the same, and then a big fellowship and big friendship comes when you realize that we are on the same team. And it was like trying to create a gang of a bunch of crazy people, and it kind of happened in a way, right? So I think it was like a healing for the community. That was like the idea, because I've seen people recognizing other people, and maybe it's just so easy, to judge other people I remember the Facebook groups. Everybody was fighting and saying bad stuff about other people, and I always said, okay, it's easy to say bad stuff about other people in Facebook, but what if you have it in front? Will you be brave enough to do it? Okay. So that was kind of the WBAC about, and also about sharing information. So we brought, beautiful lectures. It was, I think it was created by the universe, not by me. It was, I was just like a tool, and there was like a lot of people that was helping, and I kind of leaded the project because I was in this manic state that I wanted to tell you. But also, like you said, the non-dual, there's no good or bad. I mean, some good stuff came out of that. So it was a beautiful experience to me. I think it was important because connections were made that blossomed in things that I don't even know, that we don't even know, right? And good stuff, bad stuff happened, but everything is evolution. So I think it was a ceremony of healing for the community, and also, well, as you remember, we were presenting the films, the documentaries, the music, the lectures. It was just amazing and beautiful. And then the pandemic came. We stopped, and I decided to stop because I think I was going into a process, and I think the community was going into a process. But who knows? Maybe if the universe commands, someday we will have another WBAC. I don't know. Maybe, right?
Yeah.
If it's meant to be.
I'm glad that the ones that happened did. I really appreciated being able to make it to that very first one. And yeah, I like this idea of that people treat each other online and with judgment and projection and criticism, and that one of the ways to help either address that or deflate it or deal with it is actually by getting people together in person. That, it's so easy to demonize people online. It's so easy to develop an opinion or a judgment, but it's another thing when you're actually interacting with people face to face. You're having a meal with them. You're listening to a lecture with them. You're chatting between talks. That it gives you the opportunity to get to know people. And it doesn't mean that you're going to like everything or agree with everything, but at least it gives us the opportunity to actually interact as human beings and not just as personas or memes or avatars on the internet, but actually as human beings. And I think that was very valuable and useful with the WBAC. And yeah, I still really fondly look back on the experience and really enjoyed being able to participate in that. And then also later when you did it again and I was able to participate via video online, I really appreciated that as well. Though, of course, I like doing the in-person thing when possible.
Yeah, it was really good stuff. And now that I was remembering, we have the first panel of integration, and I remember that was empty. Nobody really was getting. Everybody was about taking the substance, and also I realized that there was a lot of people that was being harmed in a way by the misuse of the substance. But also I understood with time that everything is part of the process. And yeah, in that particular weekend, I met also the dark side of the I've heard crazy stories about people who committed suicide, people, it was like really gave me also a bigger taste of what this, substance is. And the more I navigate into it, the more I understand that I do not know nothing about it. The only thing I know is that unfolds a process in the people, but it's the soul journey is just different. And I mean, it's just something that ignites something, and what it comes from that is just it's unpredictable, I guess. So it's exactly what happened in the WBAC. We ignited something, and it's unpredictable. Who knows? But it was an honor to be part of that. And I remember your lecture, and I remember the energy of that Congress. It was pure. I would say pure energy, pristine energy of people recognizing each other. Yeah, it's a big smile right now in my heart. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it right now.
Nice. Yeah, something I want to reiterate for the listening audience. Again, going back to this idea that a lot of people are just being introduced to Bufo and 5-MeO-DMT now and in recent years. And as I already mentioned, that there's already kind of the myth that, oh, these indigenous cultures in Mexico have used it for hundreds or thousands of years. And that's just simply not true. There is no anthropological or archaeological evidence to indicate that. And so this is just a really important place to distinguish that everything that we're learning about 5-MeO-DMT and Bufo together, it's all brand new. It's not like ayahuasca, where there's been thousands of years of use in cultural development. It's not like psilocybin mushrooms, where there's been thousands of years of use in cultural development. It's not like peyote, where there's been thousands of years of cultural use and development, or iboga, where there's been thousands of years. That we're really only talking about humanity has really only been introduced to 5-MeO-DMT in the past 2 decades. And before that, it was known among very, very small circles of psychonauts in Mexico and in North America. But other than that, it was not known anywhere outside of those very small circles. And so there are no ancient lineages. There are no ancient collections of wisdom and guidance being passed down through the generations around the use of this. That those of us who've been involved in this world, we've been having to create it and discover it as we go along. And therefore, I think it's only reasonable to expect that there's going to be bumps, there's going to be missteps, there's going to be overreaching, there's going to be over-enthusiasm, and then there's also going to be a lot of beautiful developments that come out of that. But the WBAC, this is what I'm trying to highlight here, is that this gathering was the first time that anything like this had ever happened in the world, of bringing people together who work with 5-MeO-DMT and Bufo and just giving them the opportunity to get to know each other and to speak with each other. Because there are no ancient lineages, there are no ancient cultures, there are no ancient traditions. This is all brand new. And
Yeah.
it's still really, really new. We're still developing it. We're still discussing what are best practices. We're still looking at what's the best way to take care of the toads or to secure the secretions from the toads, and why you might want to use the pure molecule, the synthetic, versus the toad, or vice versa. That this is all still really, 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 really new. And even you mentioned like chasing after shamans with the dreadlocks or whatever, that even the identity of those who facilitate this, again, is also still very new. Yes, at this point, there are some people who've been doing it for a couple decades now. But in the vast reaches of time, that's still really, really new.
Nothing, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me highlight something.
Yeah.
In that Congress, I was so obsessed to find the roots. I mean, I was really, I mean, I was so indoctrinated from the ayahuasca world and that Pachamama state that I was really, in my heart, willing to find a maestro shaman who was going to guide me, and I just didn't find anything. And I found that, remember Corvus? We had the first, to be honest, an American had to came to these doctors and show them the molecule, and these doctors, I'm talking about Octavio and Jerry, they take them to the tribes. So we had in that Congress what I could say the ground zero of the diaspora of the 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 usage of this molecule, because there's important people and there's people that have been doing a lot of work, but in that Congress, it was, to me, was very shocking to see how this guy, this kid from California, who was also tormented himself because he revealed the location of the toads to these people, and now he was very afraid because the people were abusing the toads, and having him there and all the people presenting their respects to the man, it really transformed his life. He was living like in kind of in an isolation in Xochimilco, and it was spilling healing for everybody, that Congress. It was just beautiful. It was just beautiful. And I want to touch base in something that it's very important to me. Um, you were saying that there's these traditions of, I don't know how many years of people using ayahuasca or peyote, and it's fine. It's because when people know, with time, you can teach it better, right? But I found that it was attached with a lot of dogma, and in this moment of humanity, we receive this powerful biotechnology, because I see it also as a biotechnology that expands our brain functions, right? With no dogma. Because, I mean, to be honest, I've been roaming enough to sit down in circles of Native American people or South American people. I spent some time in Scandinavia with some Viking medicine women, and everything brought good things to my life. But what I felt is that was full of dogma, and
Yeah.
dogma also put the experience in a box. And it's fine, because sometimes dogma, it's safe because now you know the limits of the boundaries. But I think I am not a people that in those years less, that I really, I don't want to be put in a box. I mean, I need to find the limits on my own skin. And I don't know if that's good or bad. Also, my brother passed away in this story, and so we were really, really um, in the limits in those days, right? No, because of taking the toad. No, no, no. It's just something else. But we were really like in the edge in those years, and we received this generation. I mean, the old school, like you say, we received the task of finding out what were the boundaries. And I guess people like you and me, maybe we took it so seriously. Now it's so easy just to go online and find out. I remember the times when we were squeezing the first toads. I mean, I was really scared. Am I going to die? Because I was very irresponsible those days. I remember, and I am ashamed to share this, but I remember that 8 days after my first experience, I had 8 living toads in my office in La Roma in Mexico City.
Mm.
So that I was very responsible those days. We brought them back in the end. But yeah, we brought a terrarium and all that stuff. So we were in the stage that we didn't knew even how to, squeeze them or whatever, right? And it was to our generation given the task of finding out the limits. And I think some people went too far. And but also I want to honor that people that went too far, because now we're knowing where to go and where not to go. And it's important that we need to respect and honor that we are the ones that received this molecule without dogma, and we also need to keep it like that. I guess that's my because it's fine if you wanna make some rituals. It's fine, it's perfectly fine. But I always say, when you are under the effects of 5-MeO DMT and you are in a full release, Doesn't matter if I am dancing in an indigenous suit in front of you, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that you point that out. And that's certainly been one of my critiques of quote unquote traditional approaches with psychedelics is that they do come with cultural baggage. They come with history. They come with dogma. They come with doctrine. They come with rules. And sometimes those work for you and sometimes they don't. And that is one of the exciting things about 5-MeO is that since it doesn't have this history, that it doesn't actually have a lot of baggage in that sense. And it's interesting as we're seeing it play out now, like, the latest movement in the United States now is to create entheogenic churches, which, you've probably seen some of that, but it's really caught on in the United States. And then it's the question of, well, how much doctrine do we need to put in? How much ritual do we need to put in? How many rules do we need to create? And sometimes Bufo and 5-MeO are being served in very ceremonial contexts, but they're all inventions. I mean, that's the important point, I think, is that people are inventing these things, and it's not that they're right, it's not that they're wrong, but they're not coming from anywhere. That these are being invented, or maybe sometimes they're importing things from other traditions, but it's still in this very radical phase, this exploration phase of finding out what is the best way. And then, of course, one of the other new developments is, I'm sure you're aware that now with the pure molecule with synthetic 5-MeO, there's a number of different universities and healthcare companies that are researching what's the best delivery method. Should we give people a nasal spray of 5-MeO DMT? Should we give them a shot of 5-MeO DMT? How do we regulate that? How do we administer that? So there's just so many different developments that are happening. And it's not based on what came before. It's all in development right now. So it's still very much an open question kind of across the board.
You know what? I developed a method that is called the no bullshit method.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. Tell me about that.
No, bro, it's just simple. I mean, I've learned with time that this is just my opinion. And again, I am going to put this is my opinion. This is not the right thing to do. This is just my opinion, what I feel. I think these days I may change some other day, but today and from the past few years, I understood that the less you do in the when you're delivering the substance, the molecule, the better, because you imprint. Sometimes I have seen practitioners saying, I see a demon in you and I'm going to cast it away from you. Yeah. And I usually think that it's the demon of the practitioner. It's just a projection of the practitioner, right? So, of course, you must be held. You must be respected. You must be loved. But you must be not interrupted. That's what I feel. Because if I start giving you chants, maybe you're gonna see some Indians, right? If I also listen. I was in a session with my friend Dimitri in New York City. I spend a lot of time in New York these days too, and I'm connected with a beautiful community over there. And sometimes we were in a session, and this patient, I don't really know the word. He was participant is the word that I'm looking for. He was receiving the molecule, right? And he started struggling. And one of my friends in the room brought his singing bowls. And I said, please respect the man. If he's struggling, who are you to diminish the struggle? He has to go through something, right? So we need to hold space, and he has to face it, and we need to be here for him. But we are nobody. I mean, sometimes the frequencies, I know energy, can change the experience, of course. I mean, that's physics. I don't know. That's not magic. But who am I to remove you from to face the challenge that you're doing, right? Who am I to play beautiful music if you need to face hell? I mean, I am your brother and I'm going to be standing here right next to you when you go through hell, but you have to go through it. Who
No.
am I to, to try to, I mean, and there's a lot of pride attached to that situation. So to me, the most respectful way to me, again, is to respect the process. I mean, of course, some people roll. We need to be ready to not let them hurt themselves,
Right.
or I mean that's what common sense brings, yeah. But this idea, and the community. I mean, I'm not really liked in the Pachamama community because I was coming to these places and saying to these kind of ideas to the medicine woman. That was a character that a lot of white girls and rich girls was trying to adopt. And I was saying this, like, why are you not respecting the process of the people? And who are you? There's a lot of pride. Fix yourself, and if you fix yourself enough, you will not be willing to fix anybody because you will understand that nothing has to be fixed. I mean, everything must be transcended by the person, and there's every struggle is a blessing. So this whole idea of the medicine people, I mean, it's something that I don't know. I mean, but I respect, and that's why this kind of idea. That's why a lot of the community doesn't like the way I think. But it's just what I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that you have your own view and that you're willing to stand behind it. So let's go ahead and shift now to a couple years ago. I think is the first time I noticed that maybe it was on Instagram, but I saw this thing that said Bufo Camp, Mexico, men's retreat.
Oh,
And at first, I didn't even know it was you. I was like, "Oh, what is this? What is this Bufo camp?" But then I pretty quickly put it together that this is what Mario is doing now. He's doing these men's retreat in Bufo camp, and I will say that I've had the opportunity to do integration calls with a couple of different people who have gone through the camp, and actually I think there's one or two students who are in my integration course that just started last week, who were first introduced to Bufo through Bufo Camp in Mexico with you.
oh,
And so that was all part of the full circle of like, okay, I've really got to contact Mario and get him on for an interview so we can talk about it. But yeah, let's talk about where Bufo Camp, where that inspiration came from. And I'm very interested to hear that you've shared a little bit with me about it, but I'm interested to hear more of how does it work? What's the program? Yeah, anything you'd like to share about that? I'm definitely very curious.
well, I would say that the inspiration was I would like to give to the people the opportunity to experience this process the way I would like to have experienced it on myself.
Hmm.
I mean that's what basically the idea. And this Bufo camp is not about the practitioner, is not about the molecule, is not about the substance. I think it's a program. It's more like a program, and the foundations of this camp, it's fellowship, love, respect, brotherhood, connecting with that primal energy when we were like in high school, when we were with a few guys. What could be more wonderful than doing drugs for 5 days with your friends, right? It's like this energy of brotherhood, of I mean, it has adventure. We have circles of sharing. There's no the energy, the feminine energy is not allowed there because it switches the energy. When I mean, I also removed the beautiful girl who was giving us the bodywork massage because I felt the switch in the energy immediately, right? Something came in. So when there's no I mean, there's beautiful energy, and I'm not saying that I don't want it. I mean, just for this particular event, just being five guys taking the substance, the medicine, giving us the opportunity to talk about what are we feeling, to be vulnerable, to cry, to go through whatever we're going through. We do a hike, we do breath work. I mean, basically all the tools that I have found in my way, I put a program together, which is very simple, I guess. It's just we do immersion day, which is we do three rounds of Bufo in 6 days, and in between we do a lot of integrations. We do immersion day, then we do a night in the fire, and then we learn how to microdose, and then we make a surprise in the end, which you will know when you come with us.
Okay, top
We
secret.
go, we go into we have some connections here that allows us to go into one of them, I guess, one mountain that used to be a mine that has one of the biggest quarks on Earth. So it's a surprise. No, it's something, and I would say that, and also it's a men's retreat because with time, I think I have learned to choose who I am willing to work with and who I am willing to be able to help more. So, I mean, this is a 40 and plus retreat. Of course, we take sometimes people that is 30 in his 20s, and because sometimes when I see that it could be good, I take people in. But to be honest, I feel that in the medicine space, there's a lot of young kids having these circles, and that's fine. Or we have the women's circle doing these rounds of healing of the womb and all that stuff. But my generation, I mean, we're very wounded too. And we really never, I mean, therapy and all that stuff was just not on my list in my life. So for people like me, or people like the people of my generation, it's just create this opportunity to speak different. Because I mean, sometimes when I even these days when if I go to therapy, I feel like this is something dumb, or I feel myself weak for accepting that I have to go to therapy or blah blah. That's those ideas that in my mind. So being able to just open a circle of guys, because how did we had therapy when we were younger? We're going out with some other random dudes, and we just were speaking about whatever, and that's kind of capturing that essence and bring it to a sacred space of respect, of brotherhood, of empowerment, of being able to have a safe space to, if you need to broke, you can break down here, and we will be holding space for you. So the real medicine behind the camp is the medicine of love, of respect and brotherhood. And what is the tool we use? We use Bufo, and we use integration. And I am working with a couple of great integrationists, and basically it's an experience of like a field trip with some guys, but using this powerful tool. So it's, to me, is something that I have put a lot of love on it. Also, it's in an incredible facility in the desert, in the safe desert of Mexico. We're very protected. It's very super safe. We're far from whatever people have seen in the Narcos area. No, we're in a fantastic location, and well, it's just an effort to, and I just work with 5 people. So it's super small. I just take 5 guys. We go into the desert. We go deep in our souls. Uh, at these days, I am still doing the camp. Some days, someday I will try to just make it, because it's not about me. because I don't want to make an egotistic thing of, oh, this is the retreat that Mario does. No, this is a program that must be filled if I am serving or not. If if the cook serves the pipe, it's okay. But we have to fill up the program, which means talking about our feelings, right? Because that's the main thing. It's like a mixture of, some ideas of the 12 steps program, because we have the ceremony that is burning the book. We give them, the participants, a book where we are writing through the week all our worst scenes, and the final day we just say it into the brotherhood and we burn into the fire. So there's a lot of beautiful exercises that we do there that is not about just about the toad or smoking the medicine, which helps a lot. We have a drum circle with psilocybin and cacao. It's to me, it's something that I have put it together with a lot of love, and I am really not. We're not really advertising it that much. The universe is just sending the right people, and I want to keep it like that. This is never going to be a 60 people retreat in Costa Rica. No, this is different because I don't want to be treated like that. So, and I'm not saying that nothing is good, nothing is bad. I am saying that this is the way I would like to be treated. That's what I am creating for the community that matches the resonance in the universe. So I usually don't have to say about it. People just pops up, and if we match, we go, and that's it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about how you got the very first retreat organized, because this is definitely something different in the Bufo 5-MeO DMT world, this idea of like a small men's retreat. It's very different than, say, we've got the Bufo Alvarius Sanctuary in Tulum, where you can fly into Tulum and you can make your appointment and go in and get your Bufo, and then you're gone. Or you can go to some of these really expensive retreats in the Caribbean or over in Costa Rica. And then I've actually seen a lot of women's groups, women's retreats with Bufo or 5-MeO, but I don't know of any others that are specifically focusing on men. So yeah, when you first set it up, how did you find the right people to actually launch, and find people that this is what they were looking for?
Well, Martin, the universe takes care of it. I just put it outside. And I think one of your students, one guy from Germany, this guy, Sasha, my brother, he was one of the first Bufo campers.
Yeah.
He was part of the first one. And it was an incredible experience. And, we have been evolving into this idea, and every camp we're trying to make it more manly. I would call it like that, because we, the guys, the dudes, we know how to deal with dudes, right? So it's simple. We are simple, and it's a simple retreat. So we like good food, we like good talks, we really like good company. It's just, that's why I call it the no bullshit mode.
Yeah.
Right. So, and yeah, and I have a few other. we did one thing that it's called stitches, which was good. We did stitches was an idea, and we did a couple of them where a family were coming to the facility, like let's say a broken family, that like a father who wanted to fix the relationship with his two sons and a daughter. That's why we had stitches. So we made this program where we were taking the medicine, but to be honest, what is really blossoming is this idea of the Bufo Camp, the men's retreat. So we did stitches. We did also the Bufo for couples. And now, what's new? In the last camp, two of the gentlemen that came to the camp say that they did one father and son Bufo Camp men's retreat. So, it's just the universe telling us what to do and the people that it's coming. And I am open because when you have the opportunity to be all these days with a few group of people being honest and transparent, the soul of the people will tell you what do they need. And I'm just open to co-create. So this has been a co-creation between all the campers that came. It's not my idea. It's just what has been emerging. And I'm just making it a format. And I don't know, at some point, I don't mind if somebody wants to replicate it. It's fine. I'm not interested in being like at McDonald's and selling franchises of. I just want the people to heal and do it with respect. And if somebody wants to do it, I will gladly share the program with them because it's simple. It's nothing special. It's just a bunch of guys doing the work, trying to have a better life using this magnificent tool, which is the Bufo. So it's just what it is. Simple.
Yeah. And how many of these have you run so far?
9. We're on the 9th. Some months, sometimes I skip the months, and so we're on the 9th. We're on the class of the 9th.
Wow. And are you always able to get 5 people in?
Well, usually yes.
Yeah.
Usually yes. What I do is I'm spending these days a lot of time in New York City. I'm working with a community there. And so we've been doing some underground work over there. And some people just, when the time is ready, we just fly down to Mexico and we do the camp. And yeah. So yeah, usually we have 5.
Yeah. So with this group of clientele, with men seeking a men's retreat experience, do you ever find that there are people approaching you or asking to participate and you're finding that, I don't think this is really a good fit for you? Do you ever have to turn anybody away?
Well, to be honest, in the beginning, I was doing it so, to be honest. But then I realized that I was being prideful, that I was thinking that I was better than the other people to say, you, yes, you don't. So it was another ego trap. Yeah. I was on that in the beginning. Well, now I am kind of open. I mean, of course, I mean, I would take people, and I don't like to turn out people. If I feel the people that really want to do it and they have a pure intention, what I have said to people no, but not because they are not enough or something. It's just sometimes I feel like also sustaining the energy of a men's group. It's important, and sometimes it's like they sent me a young kid, and I said no. Maybe this is not a good idea. Well, I rejected a few people, but now I'm working on that, Martin, and I'm gonna be open because there's pride behind saying you yes, you know. Who am I to close you the doors of this? If you had really wants to do it, I'm working on it, Martin. I'm working on it. Yeah. You made an interesting question.
Yeah, well, I've got another one for you that maybe it's too early to provide any kind of answer for this, but just something that's kind of coming up in my mind is just the whole notion of masculinity and what it means to be a man. It's currently something that is really going through quite a transformation up here in the United States right now because of certain forms of leadership that are in power these days. And so there's some really big shifts happening in American society. And I know that there's some big shifts happening in other societies and cultures around the world. And this is why I'm saying maybe you haven't been doing these men's retreats long enough. but I'm curious if you've seen any impact of that yet. And this, again, maybe this is a question that would be better for like 5 years from now or 10 years from now to ask, like, what shifts in masculine identities have you seen over the past decade? But I'm curious if you're seeing any of that even at this sort of early stage of this sort of massive redefining of gender roles, gender identity, women's roles, men's roles, state of identity, what's permissible, what's not permissible, what makes someone a man versus not a man or whatever we want to call it. But a lot of this stuff is really up for grabs. And in my critical opinion, in North America, here in the United States, a lot of it is not going a direction that I personally support. That's just my critical opinion. But I'm curious if you have any thoughts or reflections on sort of these kinds of questions, or maybe it's too early to tell.
Well, it's just my opinion, and I'm nobody, okay? I'm just gonna say what I think, and it's my opinion. I think the feminine energy and the masculine energy are defined. You could be a woman with masculine energy, yeah, but you see a girl acting as a boy. It's something that it is. It's, to me, those two energies exist no matter who inflicts that energies, right? So in this camp, what I have seen is that every man, I think we had the visit of, and it was a beautiful visit of, one of the campers was a gay gentleman that came with us, and he brought us a lot of insights, because there's a lot of masculine energy too in the gay community. So in the end, we the men, when we gather, we talk about the same things. We have the same desires to help us, our family, to support our families, to struggle, to thrive. It's the same thing. And to me, the masculine energy, it's the energy that gives. And the feminine energy is that energy who receives. So it's, to me, it's very simple. No matter what, what the government, what the society says, to me, those energies, that's the way it works. And that camp has the energy of giving love, giving support, and allowing at some point to receive, yes, but we empower as men when we give. There's nothing more satisfying for a man that achieving something, winning a sport. It's universal. It's like in our DNA, in our genes. So in that camp, we just embrace that. And yeah, we had the visit of this gay gentleman. It was amazing. He brought a lot of good energy, and it's open for everybody. In that particular, I would not be. That would not be something that will make me, think different. What I want to say is that we will empower the original masculine energy, which is the energy of giving, supporting, that I think it's universal.
Yeah. So it sounds like this has really been quite the shift for you. If we compare helping to put out the World Bufo of various Congress, bringing in people from all across the world, bringing as many people as we can, right? Make all these connections. And yeah, there was a lot of forward motion energy there, in a sense of like, let's connect, let's do it, let's change the world. And this is much more insular in the sense of, well, let's take 5 guys, let's go out into the desert. This is not public. This is not for public consumption. This isn't about making connections, changing the world. This is about giving men the opportunity to go into themselves express themselves, to bond, and to have these transformative experiences. So it just seems like a really quite the shift in focus for yourself. And it sounds like you really enjoy it.
Yes, Martin, because now it's becoming real in me. I cannot share myself with 60 people. I mean, listen, I have found with time that the most popular people is the most fake people. The most the most you're able to fake, the most people will like you because you are reflecting in other people's. But once you start being your true self and you start doing it in your own way, 5 guys will appear that resonate with you and will do the work with you. And you don't need more than 2 or 3 guys to change the world, but your inner world. You don't have to change the outside world. You maybe need a couple of good friends that support you to go through hell of recognizing how wrong you did to your family, how much you neglected your marriage, how much you neglected your kids, how much damage have you did to them. If you have 2 or 3 guys that can relate to that and can hold space and support you and do not judge you for that, that will change your world, and that's enough.
Well, that's beautiful, Mario. It kind of feels like that's a good place for us to wrap up this conversation. I've had you for a good while here. With Bufo Camp, and for men who might want to participate, is that bufocamp.mx? Is that correct? Where they go online?
Yeah, it's bufocamp.mx. And also we have some posts in the Retreat Guru. But bufocamp.mx would be where you will find the dates and the details and all that stuff. That would be the easiest way to get there.
Yeah. So it sounds like this really is your major focus at this point. I mean, you've mentioned the community that you're working with in New York, but it sounds like this Bufo Camp, this low profile, small group, doing the nitty gritty, sounds like what's really fueling your passion right now.
Yeah, these days, yes. Yes. To be honest, yes.
Yeah.
And I hope someday you could be my guest, Martin.
Yeah, I think we could probably work that out at some point. Like we were talking, it might not be this next one because, stuff on the schedule already. But I do hope to be able to do that at some point and get a chance actually just to spend some more time with you. I always like spending time out in nature, not having other responsibilities. That's always a top of my priority list. And I just look forward to whatever develops beyond this. I appreciate the connection that we've had over the years. I've appreciated the work with WBAC. I appreciate having you back on the podcast now and kind of reconnecting after a few years where we haven't had much interaction. But it's just nice to kind of keep going on this journey of life and to have these friends such as yourself and these connections and just keep nurturing them. And it's great to have you back on the podcast and be able to share a little bit of this history and your own vulnerability and where you see wanting to put your focus and attention and use the Bufo, use the 5-MeO as a tool for grounded good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin, thank you for having me in your podcast. I really enjoyed it.
All right, Mario. It was great to connect. Let's talk again soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay.